Welcome back and thank you for keeping it KTN Farmers TV. Today we are talking about rangeland management, and with me is Professor Jesse Theuri Njoka, who is an academician, a retired professor of rangeland management. So, Professor, before we went on a break, we were talking about the management and how the communities, you said they're still losing a lot of their good soils due to degradation and soil erosion. Is there also have they ever lost some of the grasses that traditionally that used to grow there?
Yes, in actual fact, we classify the grasses in a natural setting in two categories. Mm-hmm. There's grasses which say they are increasers. When there is overgrazing, they become more prominent. And then there are the ones we call decreasers. Those are the ones that decrease because they are more palatable or more acceptable to animals when there is overgrazing. And then there is what we call invaders, when you have a range being invaded by plants that were not there before. For example, in the area of Kajiado, that area, Machakos, Makueni area, there are seasons when you don't see any grass. You only see plants that look like potatoes. We call them hypomea. And those are in degraded areas. In other places, you see the bush, some undesirable bush coming up because of the balance, the woodland takeover. And in a worst scenario that I'm seeing now, it's in those floodplain areas, high potential for irrigation areas that are being invaded by new species like prosopis, or some people call it mathenge, but it is actually causing a lot of problems in irrigated areas.
All right.
So I think that's that.
Are there efforts to bring back the lost grasses, or nature will take care of itself?
No. This is why we are talking about restoration of degraded ecosystems. And rangelands are among the most degraded. And what we do is, in a restoration, we can correct some of those wild grasses, get their seeds, and do what we call reseeding. Okay. So some countries have done a very big job on that, and they have restored their range. And we can do it, but you have to do it within a policy framework which allows people to get the benefits of their efforts.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, let's talk a little bit about the International Congress that is coming up. Yes. Tell us a little bit about why it's important to have this Congress.
Well, it's first, it's an honor and privilege for Kenya to host this International Congress because it is the first Congress, joint Congress between, joint Congress of International Grasslands and International Rangelands Congress held in Africa. And it will be attended, or there are about 80 countries that participate in this process. So in terms of bringing the profile of the country, it's important that we were chosen in 2016 to host the 2020 International Grassland and Rangeland Congress. We got it that time. When we got it, we have been working and preparing for this, but then COVID has come. The Congress was supposed to be last year. Now we are going to hold it this year, October 25th to 29th, but it will be virtual because of the prevailing issues of COVID. So it's important that we bring all the scientists, all the practitioners in range management, grassland together to exchange information and knowledge about the status of rangelands in the world. And this is coinciding with also what the UN is also proposing, having a decade of ecosystem restoration and also a year of rangeland protection and awareness raising. what is surprising is that all over the world, rangelands and grasslands are mostly neglected, little understood, and yet they play such a key role in the welfare of humanity. And especially now we are talking about climate change, the loss of biodiversity. Most of the biodiversity is located in the rangelands, even here in Kenya. And the future of mankind cannot go anywhere without restoration and protection of these areas. Oh. For example, in our country, tourism, where we get a lot of money, and beef and all that, yes.
Okay. So during the Congress, what are some of the thematic areas that will be in discussions?
Yes, we have 7 thematic areas that the Congress is focusing on. One of them is rangeland ecology and management. Another area has to do with fodder, grassland production and utilization, which, and the third one is to do with livestock production system in the rangelands and grasslands. And the fourth one is multiple use of rangelands, especially focusing on tourism, wildlife, and any other use that these lands can be put into, even mining and all that. And the fifth thematic area has to do with drought.
Just a minute. The fifth. It was too loud.
Okay. The fifth thematic area is drought, and drought problem in drylands because of climate change and many other factors. And the sixth one has to do with pastoralism as a lifestyle, livelihoods in those dry areas. And the seventh one has to do with the policy, institutions, legal frameworks for, and also the capacity building of managers of these rangelands. And we are getting people from all over the world. We have 9 key speakers, keynote speakers, and one of them is our Kenyan called Dr. Waithaka, John Waithaka. We will be speaking on the sub-theme on tourism, wildlife conservation, and another key speaker from Australia to talk about drought issues and other issues, and people from Brazil, they'll talk about grassland utilization and so forth. So there are different key speakers to focus on those thematic areas. And we have 2 panel discussions, one focusing on drought, that is being sponsored by IGAD, that is Intergovernmental Authority on Drought, on Development in our area. And then the other one will focus on pastoralism. Pastoralism, the challenges they are facing, and there are very many papers, scientists contributing information towards that will be given, will be aired through oral presentations, through various sessions, many sessions. We have 230 papers, 31 papers that will be presented orally, covering all those thematic areas, and we have those 2 panel discussions.
All right. Yes. Professor, so can you break down for us what all these thematic areas stands for, or what are the expectations?
These thematic areas have been chosen to address very complex issues in rangelands and grasslands. For example, globally, we have challenges to do with land management, land degradation. And every one of those themes will look at the aspects of this complexity. If you take rangeland ecology and management, the biggest challenge we have is the loss of biodiversity in the range areas. The degradation goes with the loss of plant species, animal species, and also what we are talking about, the soil. because if you look at the rangeland as an ecosystem, it provides what we call ecosystem services. Those ecosystem services, they start from the soil, photosynthesis, or the plants, and that feeds into now the productive services. For example, the food we get, the livestock we keep there, and that also, there's another aspect that people don't realize, that to do with the climate change, what we call ecosystem regulation, releasing water slowly so that the rivers don't dry, or sequestrating or storing carbon into the soil, the green gases. If that is destroyed, then you have problem with even the livelihoods. So that's why ecosystem study is very important. Researchers who are working on those different areas. And for example, this problem now we have about invasive species of prosopis and many other species. It is not healthy. And we need to sound an alarm so that we can control it where we can, or use it in a way that will be helpful to the communities. Yes, the other ecosystem, the other thematic area has to do with, what did I say?
Livestock production and...
No, the one to do with fodder production.
Yes.
Fodder production. As I said...
Yes, fodder production.
Some of the people who will be participating in this Congress will be talking about some of the grasses they have gotten from Kenya. They have bred them and improved them to the extent that it's very productive. And a particular grass is bracharia. Bracharia is indigenous here. And most of the South America and Australia, those countries, the grasses they have from Kenya or from these areas, rangelands from our country, are the ones that are driving the economy. And they have improved them to the extent now that we can import them, or they are doing better than we are doing. But it's good to keep the indigenous species. The utilization of them and the seed production and so forth. And Kenya has been a lead in terms of what we call grass studies. In Kitale, we had a big program of improving grasses, and that's why it has gone everywhere in other parts of the world. The third one is livestock production system.
Yes.
There are many production systems. There is the pastoral livestock production system. Okay, like that. Okay. Can I go on?
Yes.
The livestock production system is the mainstay for pastoral livelihoods, and even the ranching in places like America and even Botswana and other places. And people are preferring grass-fed beef or meat than the ones that is put under these feed processing areas. So we have a comparative advantage as Kenya. If we can produce quality beef, quality animals that are grass-fed, they have a niche we call organic foods in other countries and even in our country. But of course, we also have to look at the way we treat these animals, because we have to adhere to what we call international standards. If we put too much antibiotics without control, then the food safety issue comes in.
Okay.
The fourth area is to do with...
multiple use of rangeland.
Yes, and before I leave livestock, we have also given the world some of the best animals. The Borana animals, they are very important in places like Australia. They got them from here, and we need to protect our breeds. Okay? Then the fourth area is tourism, wildlife tourism, and in that area, we are also well known. We are champions of what we call conservancies, community wildlife conserved areas. And most of these delegates, you tell us from their countries how they are doing conserving wildlife biodiversity in their areas. But in Kenya, a lot of land, community land, has been put under conservancy. That is bringing a lot of money and has a future for us. The third area is to do with the drought. And I cannot understate the importance of this, because drought cycles are increasing. We used to have droughts every 1 in 10 years. 1 in 10 years. Now is every 3 years. We had a drought in 2016, 2017. And now last week, the president declared that we are in a drought emergency. And yet, this is going to be normal, because with the degraded lands, loss of ecological resilience, and people not depending very much on the traditional ways of life, they become more vulnerable to climate change. And therefore, in our Congress, we have dedicated one whole session, panel session, to bring experts from the world virtually to discuss the issue of drought. And the chair one of the presenters will be from Australia and so forth. And then the drought is going to increase with the time, and we have to prepare for it. And credit to the Kenya government, we have established institutions, mechanisms to deal with drought issues so that they do not surprise us. We have what we call adding drought emergencies. Okay? Okay. The sixth area has to do with pastoralism, the livelihoods. What's happening with the modernization of the pastoralists and land use changes? How is that being affected? And of course, the seventh one is also very important, because it is dealing with the policy, institutions, and the governance. And governance is a big issue because of the conflicts. You can hear what is happening in Boko Haram area, in Nigeria, and other places. And here we are now dealing with what we call extremists in our range areas. If we don't take care of those range areas, they become breeding areas for extreme and conflicts. Okay. Yes.
So this conference, now that it's virtual, is everyone? Is it for everyone, or it's?
Yes, it's for everyone, but we have a registration fee, because Kenya government is actually sponsoring most of this, and we like to recover a bit of money from people who are participating. But if you want to participate and you are not able to afford, we are asking for $100 for anybody who wants just to participate. But you can also apply for sponsorship if it's there, or you ask your organization to sponsor you. But for people who are presenting papers, we are saying they pay about $230. And window for registration is up to 30th of this month. So please go to our website and just put RI, International Registered Congress Kenya 2021, and you can see all the particulars.
All right. So what are the expectations at the end of the Congress? What do we aim to achieve by the end of the Congress?
By the end of the conference, we hope to improve the networking among the scientists to create that platform where we can be exchanging information. And of course, for Kenya, we want to sell Kenya. With all the accomplishment we have done in range management, we have a cadre of staff who are trained in that area. We have our pastoralists who are using their rangelands in a more organized way. And we have also, through IGAD framework, for example, we have created corridors for pastoralists to move from place to place to reduce conflicts. For example, right now, our pastoralists in Turkana, they are in our neighboring country because of that protocol agreement. Okay. Yes.
So from the 7 thematic areas, how are these going to be translated now out there in these communities and improving these ecosystems?
Yes, we are hoping to give the rest of the world what we are doing, and we are also hoping to learn from the rest of the world what they are doing. For example, our community now, we have what we call Land Community Act, Community Land Act, which will help us to define a certain jurisdiction for each community where they can take charge, responsibility for restoration, for proper utilization, rather than having people invading without any, when it's common grazing, there's no control. So that is one. The other one is we hope we have more people coming to see our country.
Okay.
Yes. There are many institutions that are dealing with the issues of rangelands and drylands. Here in Kenya, because of having UNEP or United Nations Organization, we have UNDP Dryland Center that focuses on drylands, which are mainly rangelands. At UN level, we have what I mentioned, UNCCD, United Nations Convention to Combat Desertification, which we are party to, and we are trying to localize that through action plans. What I mentioned, land degradation neutrality, where we don't want to see any more land being degraded, and we want to reclaim whatever is degraded. And then we have the climate change framework, which we are party of, and right now the climate funds are going to counties, and they are coming up with the strategies of how to adapt to climate change. And then we have many others that are helping us to deal with issues of rangelands. Even the issue of conflicts. Under IGAD, we have the conflicts resolution mechanisms that is cross-border, and within the country we have also our own ways of creating cohesiveness amongst our communities, so that as resources decrease, they don't have to fight. We find out the best way of coexisting.
All right.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Professor Theuri, for sparing time to come and have this conversation with us. I'm sure we've learned a lot, and we are looking forward to being participant at the upcoming international conference on rangelands. For our viewers back at home, today we are talking about rangeland and grassland management, and with me was Professor Jesse Theuri, who is a retired academician, especially when it comes to rangeland management. That is all that we have today on AgriTalk. Until next time, goodbye.